First thing that we have on the agenda this evening are reports. First under reports, the Community Hospital Work Group. Bruce.
I couldn't attend our meeting this morning because I had to be down in Georgetown at a road committee meeting down there, one of my jobs as representative. But Patty Seabold, is she here tonight? Patty chaired the meeting this morning. We were going to look at developing questionnaires for our group to be able to go out and talk to other hospitals and start to bring back information to the group. And we were also going to talk about Patty's ongoing interview sessions. I guess I probably can't give you an update on that committee process this morning, but we're going to be continuing to meet. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, it was just unavoidable. The other thing that I have to report to you is that we've had a minor setback. I call it a minor setback in our plans to go forward with a plan. The setback is that Stroudwater Consulting, who had been the group that we've been working with over the period of several weeks, withdrew from considering to work with us. They cited and I have to tell you, I was surprised, shocked, and awed, I guess, because it happened within about 2 hours of when they were actually supposed to be mailing me and the task force the proposal that they were going to give us to work with them. They cited a conflict with Midcoast because they've been doing a lot of work with Midcoast, and I naturally asked the question, why didn't you come up with this conflict a long time ago? Because you've been sitting down at the table with us and talking with us about working with us. I've talked with Lois Skillins at Midcoast. She says that actually she did not feel there was a conflict. I talked with Stroudwater, both the consultant that we were working with and his boss, and they just said, and all I can tell you is they feel uncomfortable in going forward with working with us. I asked them both whether or not Maine Health had anything to do with this, and they both said no. So, in other words, the speculation was, I was here last Tuesday night saying we were going to work with Stroudwater, and then within a couple of days they pulled out of the engagement with us. I don't know why they did it. I asked them directly and explicitly, why is this happening, and did Maine Health have anything to do with it? And they said no. So I can't go any further. I believe what I heard. I think they're honorable and good people, and that's what I believe. We have been having conversations with other consultants in the meantime, and kind of even as we were working with Stroudwater through lots of Peggy Pinkham's contacts, and we're actively engaged in working with another consulting group. And you might ask, why do we need a consultant group that might cost us up to $50,000? We are in a game, my friends, we are in a game with the pros. We couldn't put our amateur team onto the playing field with the Patriots and hope to win. And, Navigant and Maine Health are big, strong, intelligent, well-organized business. And we need, if we are going to present an alternative plan to them, we need something with some oomph, with consultants who have credibility, information, data, everything behind them who will help us. So we will come back to you ASAP with a proposal that will probably be similar in cost. We're going to be delayed a few days because of this, but we're going to move on ahead. So that's basically my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, I can add something to that. I was at the meeting, his friend, right? I was at the meeting this morning, and one of the things that the group did was to have a dialogue about a business plan, and a list was put together that's included in the minutes that you probably will see later tonight.
I know, I saw the titles. I didn't have time to read
and we picked out a large list of items that either a consulting group could work on a business plan, and most of them were related to what kinds of services would we want any kind of a facility to have.
Right.
And it was done so that it would be something to give to a consulting group, but by the same token, if it's not to a consulting group, we can put together an amateuristic piece of it ourselves, but not to the level of a consulting group.
Right, thank you. That is what we are about producing with the consultant, is essentially what you call a business plan. Again, I characterize it as the business plan that we would have hoped that Lincoln County Health would have come up with for us in our region, but since they didn't, we're going to do it. And I also just want to keep reiterating that we don't necessarily think there's a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. But in other words, we may do this planning, and if we don't have an audience with Lincoln County Health or with the St. Andrews Board, we don't know whether we can proceed beyond showing the community and them what could have happened here. We don't want it to end that way. We'd love to have the cooperation of Lincoln County Health in developing this alternative plan. But that's it. You know, we don't know whether it'll have success or not. But this is the only game in town, and we're playing for keeps. If we lose the critical access designation on April 1st of next year, it's gone.
Thank you, Bruce.
I got a comment too.
Go ahead.
The biggest, to try to wrap up what the task force has been doing is coming up with a credible counter argument. I think that all of the work that the task force has been doing and the consultant work that Representative McDonald is looking at could be complementary to one another. Obviously, we haven't seen the proposal for the work yet, but I think that's what Bruce is trying to say, is that in order to have a good, credible counter argument, we need to have a professional help us analyze some of this, because obviously a professional has analyzed the original argument. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Next under reports, the data analysis report.
I'm going to have to take a few minutes here because this may be my last meeting with you. I have,
Until next year.
we've got the data book here organized so that there are separate sections of the book for the population data. There's a section for the data on St. Andrews, a section for the data at state level, and a section on county level data. And what I've done in the last week or so is to go through all that data and to write up for each of those sections a summary of what the data show. So you don't have to go through all the numbers to get at it. And I want to just review a little bit of that with you now, and I'll give a copy of these summaries to Jim so that if people do not have a computer, I've already put them up on the Google Groups page. If you do not have a computer, you can get a copy from him. But what we're seeing in these data is a situation where the population of this area is aging very rapidly, where the average age of the median age of the population has gone from, where is it here? I'm just losing my place. The elderly population has been increasing, young population has been decreasing, working age population has been fairly steady. Whatever growth there's been has been confined to Booth Bay and Edgecombe. You're not finding it in Booth Bay Harbor or in Southport. The median age as top of the peninsula is like 43.9 years. At the bottom of the peninsula, it's 52.8. So you get a very strong gradient. The further south on the peninsula you go, the older the population gets. And the more rapidly it's changed over the time. It's, the increase in Edgecombe was 2.5 years. In Booth Bay, it's 4.1. In Booth Bay Harbor, 7.3. So you get quite a bit of variation. This is the number of years older the population is over a 10-year period. With this comes a very strong relationship with the chronic disease burden in the community, so that the older the population gets, the more chronic disease there is. And so this is something that's rapidly increasing in this area. Measures of poverty show differences among the town. The poverty rate is the highest in Boothbay, followed by Southport, Boothbay Harbor, and Edgecombe. And the percentage of the population unemployed shows a very strong gradient as we come down the peninsula, ranging from 7% in Edgecombe to 8.7 in Southport. So as the further south you go, the more unemployment you got. And the percentage under main care does not seem to track either the poverty rate or unemployment, which sent me looking for how does main care define their population. It's in the book, believe me, it's 30-some pages of just unintelligible gobbledygook that is in there. It's almost impossible to tell how they decide who's eligible and who isn't. Now, with respect to Lincoln County data, which is the lowest level in which we really have good data on health, the health rates, health risks in Lincoln County are quite high by state standards and by national standards. We have the highest percentage in the state of former smokers and former smokers. We have the highest percentage of substance abusers. We have the high percentage of babies born prematurely with low birth weight, which is a critical sign of prenatal care deficiencies and in maternal nutrition issues. It's a high percentage of youth with suicidal ideation, and a low percentage of youth who report regular exercise. When you get to the disease side, we have relatively low peak percentages of the population reporting days lost due to health, a regular source of care. We have a low percentage without dental care. We've got the lowest teen birth rate of any county in the state. Some places where that seems to look very good. We have a very high rate, the highest in the state of population diagnosed with cancer. We've got the highest rate of several specific cancers: bladder, breast, prostate, melanoma. We have a low rate, low incidence of chronic obstructive lung disease, which doesn't seem to go with the smoking data, but there it is. And a low incidence of gonorrhea and chlamydia infections, which are the ones that have been measured statewide. Mortality measures, we have high death rates from COPD, pneumonia, smoking-related cancers. And this is now an issue which starting to pop out at me, which I'll come to in the summary of this. We've got high general cancer death rate, especially for melanoma, bladder, colorectal, and prostate cancers. We have a high rate of alcohol-related deaths. We've got the highest rate of any county for motor vehicle accident deaths. We've got a high infant mortality rate, and we've got a high death rate for heart disease and stroke. Low diabetes mortality, and so forth. The hospital utilization, we have very low admission rates for ambulatory care sensitive conditions, psychosis, senility, bipolar disorder, substance abuse, alcohol and drug-related psychoses, HIV infections, high-risk pregnancies, asthma and bronchitis, in spite of the fact that our data show high prevalence in these areas. And this is something I find of real concern. There's a very substantial indication here that there's a lot of unmet medical need in the area. The same conditions that have low incidence are ones where there's a high mortality and low medical care utilization. This is something that I think needs to be in the discussion. When you get to the St. Andrews Hospital data, most of what we have is more financial. Revenue from program services dropped by about $600,000 between 2007 and 2009. Salary and wages were $8.7 million in 2009. Total expenses were $20 million in 2007. 20.1 in 2009. There seemed to be some changes in accounting at the point where St. Andrews was taken over by Lincoln County Health. And there's some data here where I just have no idea what to make of it. Total functional expenses, for instance, was reported in 2007 as $84,226. In 2009, it was $21,802,000. And it's for the same category, and I have no idea how to explain that. And hopefully, at some point, we can figure that one out. Lincoln County Health data shows the current assets increased between 2004 and 2011 by $2.7 million. Total assets by 3.2, net assets by 3.2. And between 2004 and 2011, the current liabilities increased by 1.8 million. Total liabilities by 1.1. When you look at the ER data that Sue published in the Register, and which Judy Stone looked at, about 44% of the level 1 or level 2 ER visits took place during the times when the proposed urgent care center would be closed. And 25% of the level 3 visits occurred during that same period of time, which is something of some concern here. And we have some utilization data from the Maine Hospital Association, and we have data there where you can compare St. Andrews with other hospitals in their peer group. We also have the data for Miles compared with their peer group. St. Andrews runs much more efficiently in the sense of having much less bad debt than Miles does, but by less than half. So in that sense, we were doing a much better job of collections. And then I have a whole bunch of questions about data needs and policy questions and things, which I have not yet put in the book. I will do that the next day or so. But I just wanted to have everybody kind of appraised of what the data are showing. And I must say that one of the things that I find mysterious is in the data that Lincoln County Health seems to be working on. There's absolutely no measure of medical need for the area. None. There's no measure of disease, there's no measure of illness, there's no measure of sickness. They have some utilization figures, they've got financial figures, and that's about it. So it seems to me that this is one of the things we need to raise questions about with Navigant, and also see if we can get that back into the equation, because the needs of the community have not been looked at. Okay, Ken.
Andrew, before you sit down, can I ask a question?
Sure.
All the data that you reported on the health statistics, where did that come from?
They come from various places, but there's a couple of statewide, studies that have been done of healthcare needs, and there's some at the county level. Some of them come from Maine Health, and some of them come from other sources in the state. But I think there's 3 or 4 different reports, either in the file here or which huge files I've got on my desktop, but I haven't yet, which I'm linking out on the Google site so that people can access them. But it's much too much to stick into a file here. So, yeah.
Andrew, I have a question, and I don't know how anybody's going to figure this out. I ran a company here in town, and most of the people who would come in would tell me they were day trippers. Now, we're talking about a huge number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other number is when you drive out of here early in the morning on Route 27, there's a constant line of cars and trucks coming down the peninsula, I'm assuming to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody counting those people?
Probably not. The population data we have is on people who are resident here at the time of the census, which is April 1st.
I'm thinking by those two groups, there's a much bigger population here on the peninsula in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we're even thinking about
And
it.
we don't have a good solid way of estimating the summer residents. The way it's being done now, is, I think it's kind of ingenious, but it's a certainly an indirect measure. Is to look at the waste disposal, comparing summer and winter populations, estimating the change there. So what we're getting for figures on a summer population, which is not included in any of this analysis, is it's a little bit of a guess.
And I sat down with our assessor, who's probably has the best raw data of anybody in the town of Booth Bay when it comes to figuring out how many homes are here. And we didn't have anything that we could nail down that was a better guesstimation than working with the ratio of trash per person in summer versus winter. That seems to be the best thing that we can come up with. And we took every category we could come up with, and then we ripped them apart, and we still couldn't get past trash. And I know that nobody wants to be, but it works.
Yeah.
Well, the point I'm trying to bring up is we've got two population groups, the tourists from Maine and other places who come down here for the day, don't stay in our hotels, don't live on the peninsula, and the people who come down here from off the peninsula to work, and it seems like they're both huge populations. And
Certainly.
nobody's counting.
No, it's certainly something we've been concerned about and trying to figure out how to count.
Yeah, we kind of thought about a little bit about trying to get data on the people who's have residence in town where the tax bills are being sent out of town, which would only be a partial thing, but that doesn't tell you how many people are in those houses, it just tells you how many houses. So I'm not sure that there's a better way of doing it than the way it's being done, so.
Bruce?
I just point out that one of the elements of the more detailed plan would be a better look at these data if there's a better look possible.
Mike?
According to the Navigant report itself, according to my notes, at 100% populated, at our max population in summertime, the peninsula has 24,878 people, give or take one. At 75%, it's at 17,909. That's what Navigant came up with. So that indeed is what Lincoln Healthcare apparently used as a number. It certainly seems like 24,000 in mid-July to me. But again, and we spoke in this room about the folks that stay here, some are people who are staying 5 months.
Right.
These aren't folks who are here for a week, back and forth. They're and the people with healthcare needs. That's been discussed in our meeting.
I had some additional questions I wanted to ask the data team. And first, let me start off with Andrew Twaddle is in here 2-3 times a week, combing through copious amounts of data, and he's about to leave and go. Where do you go during the summer? And
Somewhere I'm here.
Oh, during the winter. I'm sorry. Somewhere warmer, I hope. But he's about to leave, and everybody noticed when Freddie Luke left because she's so energetic. But I don't want anybody to not notice when Andrew Twaddle leaves.
Amen.
And he's been kind of a big cog. So thank you for all the work, Nolan. Secondly, I have some questions that I was hoping the data committee can take on. And I know Andrew's not going to be here, and I know Mike is taking on a transition leader role. I don't think he even knows he's the leader yet. But we need to come up with some data points. And this is in relation to the legal work that we're doing. But we want to try to get the value of the property tax exemptions for the hospital building and the property since the hospital was converted into a nonprofit in 1955. Now, some of that's going to be easy, some of it's going to take the work of the Booth Bay Harbor assessor, but it'll definitely take a leader to try to nail down some of that work. So, and I'm going to leave these questions with the data group.
They're already in the book. Sorry.
Oh, are these questions? Because these
The
questions
stuff I
are.
just gave you was in the
Oh,
book.
yeah. So these questions that I'm asking tonight. And then somehow we need to nail down the value of the donations or other similar support from municipalities to St. Andrews since that same time period. So if any gifts that were made from the towns since 1955, that's going to take a little historical check-in, going through probably annual town meeting warrants. So anybody that enjoys that work, you don't have to admit it out loud right now. But those are two questions that I'm very curious about and would be very helpful. Thank you.
Get that later.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Next under reports, the volunteer coordinator, Peggy.
I asked Peggy to report on the St. Andrews Village meeting too.
Oh, it was a humdinger.
On the trophy.
No, she should get an Oscar for this performance. Unbelievable.
Luckily, we were invited to make a presentation at St. Andrews Village, and it was yesterday. And when I went to the village to talk to the people who were coordinating it, we went through all of the various work groups, and they thought that Bruce's work group was the one they wanted to hear from. And so we really did have a grand meeting yesterday. They had to keep bringing in more chairs. I didn't make an estimate. I think in the end we had over 100 people. The spirit was fabulous. I don't know about anybody else, but I've been getting lots of phone calls about what a grand day it was. I was telling Mike that one of the doctors that lives over there actually called to find out who he was because they loved him so much. Anyway, it was a grand meeting, and I'm glad that we were invited, and I'm glad that we could share some of the spirit that's in this room that you all bring. Don't forget, tomorrow night, I don't think you can have anything else on your calendars. You just got to put the hospital task force stuff and just go for it. Tomorrow night at 6:30 at the Boothbay Fire Station is the LCRP's meeting, the Economic Impact Study, and the hospital plan is the fourth thing on their agenda. I got a copy of what's happening there tomorrow, and we're number 4. I asked her if she might be able to tell us when. And their agenda is pretty long, so I guess the 3 things that are ahead of us aren't going to take that long. So if you indeed have some time tomorrow, 6:30 at the fire station. In terms of last week's accomplishments, St. Andrews Village was on my list. I want to thank Libby Dinsmore, Patty Siebold, and Linda Kavanaugh, because they have been diligently taking care of all of the logs for the Channel 7 videos. In fact, they gave, from Patty, I got the log before I got the DVD. She took her notes and the timing off the clock, so we're good there. We completed, with Lincoln County Health, Dr. Judy Stone got a tour of the ER before she left town. Unanswered question. Mike, how many days? Shall I come back to you?
No, I got it right here. Today's
For those of you who haven't been here before, Mike wanted to put on the sign out in front how many days until St. Andrews was going to close. And we decided that we would just hunt him down every day and let him tell us. And so tonight, how many days?
St. Andrews Hospital closes in 166 days.
Or not.
Oh, no.
Excuse me, 167 days.
Or not.
167.
According to 24 hours.
Now.
If there are any wordsmiths among you, I'd like to see you after the meeting tonight. I only need a couple. And we have a project that came out of yesterday's meeting that I would like to discuss with you. It also has to do with our pole sitters. We're going to get to that in just a second. I want to thank Helen Farnham and Chris for the wonderful historical pictures from the ambulance service that Kevin Berner gave you from the register, and they will go to very good use very soon. We will be putting together the training program for those of you who have volunteered to sit at polls, for those of you who are going to be working with Helen at the senior day at the school, and for those of you who will be working the early bird sale. Let's see. the only public stuff, except for, I want to thank the task force for sending me the wording for the petition. And I think that's the next thing on the polling question. And it's a very simple one. It says, "We the undersigned," and it's on the second page of your weekly update. "We the undersigned of the town of," and the town will be inserted. For those of you who are working other events other than the polling places, that will be left empty and the person will be a place for them to put their town in. "Support maintaining the status of a critical access hospital at St. Andrews Hospital." So if you have any issues with that, you can talk to me after the meeting too, unless you want to have some open discussion about how people feel about that particular thing. I will tell you, yesterday, the response was we need a better understanding of what a critical access hospital is so that we all can be on the same page. We all have the same answers. So we've gone through all of the questions that have been asked about this up to this point. We have collected additional questions off the internet today, and in the next 48 hours, that's something I'm going to use my wordsmithers for. So that's where we are with that. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy.
I have a question, Peggy. When you get those wordsmithing volunteers, obviously we're gonna have, I know we have some good writers in the area. Can we also work on putting together some media releases to individual papers and other press
Yes,
entities?
the list of that is already done.
I just, on my notes that I have from Julie's, I just have some thoughts. So when you have those authors together, can I join that group? Just to talk about what Julie shared with us.
Yes, Pat?
I just wanted to give a quick update. Sorry I wasn't here, Bruce, for the committee meeting update, but on the interviewing project, I have done 22 interviews to date, people ranging in ages from 14 years old to 89 years old. Predominantly Booth Bay Harbor, Booth Bay, and East Booth Bay. I am missing Southport and Edgecombe folks, so I need more, and I have 21 people who have volunteered to be interviewed, so I have a good pipeline, but it's low as far as Edgecombe and Southport go. So again, I would ask anybody who is interested and willing to be interviewed to contact me, 633-4368. Thanks.
Patty, when do you anticipate your project being complete?
I'd say probably another 2 weeks, because I'm on the West Coast next week, and then we'll be, so 2 to 3 weeks before Thanksgiving.
Okay. I'm interested when it,
Yeah.
when it's complete. I think it's something that's usable.
All right. Next under reports, Booth Bay Region Ambulance Service Work Group.
I like it when the ambulance service shows up and we don't tell them that they're on the agenda, but I know I saw Scott when somebody had to leave.
I think we just belly crawled out of here.
Okay, and I spoke a little bit with the ambulance service representatives who met with Lincoln County Healthcare last week, but they weren't prepared to report everything. It was just Robbie sneaking in at the last minute. They said they couldn't give me all of the information that they discussed, but the discussion about training sessions to upgrade the qualifications of the volunteers for the ambulance service are already in the works. So I guess the idea is that there are certain levels of training that you need in order to perform certain functions at the ambulance service. And I see heads nodding back there. Yeah, I'm really talking outside of my pay grade. But the Lincoln County Healthcare has offered to train up the people to get into the next levels to provide that higher level of service. That was probably the main thing that they were going to report on anyway. But I also have a meeting with Scott coming up in which we're going to discuss some more ambulance issues. So maybe we'll have more to report at the next meeting.
Okay. Stacy?
So do you want me to add to that discussion?
Sure.
So Stacy Miller from Lincoln County Healthcare. We did meet with the ambulance service last week. There are 3 categories of expenses that we discussed with the ambulance service, and Lincoln County Healthcare has given preliminary proposals to the ambulance service. We are waiting on confirmation of those expenses. So training was easy because we know what the cost of the program is. We're working with the main EMS system. I'm pretty sure that that class, it'll be to train 10 people to go from basic level to intermediate. There'll be 10 spaces funded by Lincoln County Healthcare. I think that the ambulance crew here believe they have like 5 to 6 people to fill that slot, and then we will offer it to other ambulance services in the county. There is a category for equipment, so there are equipment needs that the ambulance service has that we have put a proposal together for. We're waiting for actual pricing of that equipment. And then there are operational expenses. And I'm fairly certain that Scott met with his board, Scott Lash from the ambulance service met with his board last night. He's attempting to finalize those figures. We intend to take our proposal, or the plan is to take our proposal to our board by the end of the month so that we can have some actual numbers to talk about. But we can't do that until we get substantiation of these numbers. So that's what we're working on right at the moment. But there are preliminary numbers that the ambulance service presently has.
Do the ambulance services preliminary numbers match what Lincoln County Healthcare is prepared to?
As far as I know, it did, but we don't have, like I said, we don't have the data. Scott's been in the process of trying to figure out the number that's the hardest is the operational issues. So there is a piece called loss of revenue, I think he called it, because what happens today is a patient will be charged from the time they're picked up to go to the emergency department, and then if there is a need for an admission, there is another charge for the patient, and the ambulance service gets revenue for both of those things. By eliminating that one stop to the emergency department here, it's going to be a decrease in revenue for the ambulance service. So he's working on that number, and then he's also working on increased costs for staffing. So we're waiting on those two figures. We should have them by the end of the month. As I said, we intend to go to the Lincoln County Healthcare Board by the end of the month. So.
Thank you.
When is the next Lincoln County Healthcare Board meeting?
Our board meetings are I'll get this mixed up. It's either the 4th Thursday or the last Thursday. I don't know which one. It's usually the last Thursday.
Okay. Next under reports, Lincoln County Regional Planning and Economic Impact Study.
As Peggy said, tomorrow night, Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission will be meeting at the Booth Bay Fire Station, right here at 911 Wiscasset Street. I always love the fact that it's 911 Wiscasset Street. That's at 6:30, and I'm just double checking. I'm not actually making a phone call. That's at 6:30. As a member of the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, I will be there. I think we also have members of Lincoln County Health that will be there as well. It's like Peggy said, it's on the agenda. What Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission is ready and willing to do is do a lot of the impact studies as far as how this will impact the region as far as economics and regional impacts. This is what they do. So they're although it takes them a while to get going because they weren't prepared to answer these questions, they're going to have something before probably the end of the winter as far as an impact study.
Is this an open meeting?
I believe their meeting is open. I think they've invited the public to that meeting. So 6:30 at the fire station. And they wanted to make sure they had plenty of space, so I'm sure that it is open to the public.
It's a legally constituted board, so it would fall under the open meeting law.
Yeah, and if Stuart Smith or Mary Ellen were here, I would say it more affirmatively. But I'm pretty sure it's.
And that's, when she talked with us, that's what the whole reason for having that, so they'd have enough room. So I'm quite confident that all are welcome.
Yeah, I would encourage people to go.
Next under reports, legal update.
The last week, the legal team that's been working with Julius met via conference call. What I wanted to report, it had a really productive meeting with Julius. It's very nice to have multiple minds and ones that had very acute understanding of healthcare and what's actually happening to discuss with Julius. And we came up with a few action items, a few things that we're working on actively. Also, the product that we've been talking about, we're more in line to deliver that in the next week or two. I don't know what else I can share, but Stu, you were on the call as well, without giving away our legal position.
Again, I just can't say, from my perspective, being a member of this task force, be able to talk with our legal representative and other people with medical backgrounds and ask questions and get pertinent answers. It was very educational. It was very positive experience for me. I came out of it feeling like we're really moving this in the right direction. I really don't want to go much further than that, but I think we're spending our money well.
And Julius has added a research assistant, and why is that pertinent is because all of the work that he's doing is we can bill at lower rates too, because his research assistant isn't quite as expensive as he is as a lawyer. There's another member of the team. Without giving away everything that we've been working on, which should be ready soon, and I know I keep saying that, but I keep saying that to keep everybody in tune for when it is ready. It was a productive meeting. We're going to have another conference call shortly.
All right.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we had any expenditures from our account?
Yeah, what you're looking at is just receipt, because I'm reporting on how much we have raised. We have one expenditure, just about $700. The $3,500 original fee is an invoice in mix-up right now. We haven't actually paid that. So we're going to be up to about $4,500 in expense, and we have more expenses coming, which I was going to report on next.
Oh, okay.
All right. Next under reports, financial fundraising.
Okay, so let's do the good and the bad. We'll start with the bad first, that we've obviously paid our first bill, and I'm not giving you an expense revenue because at this point in time, the expense doesn't make a lot of sense. It's very trivial. It's the revenue part that makes more sense at this point because we've only paid one bill. That bill was just under $800. In the correspondence that I have here, Julius and I have figured out what the mix-up was with invoicing, and we'll take care of the $3,500 that I had announced to the group that we're expecting to pay just to retain his services for the first wave of legal research. To develop our next step, he gives us a range of costs, and I wanted to make sure that the task force was well aware of what the next wave of cost would be. I've got my materials on and stuff. I think it was 8,500 to 1,500. I apparently didn't put that in my packet of materials. But 1,500 was the top amount. And that was to deliver that strategy that we discussed in the phone conference, which I think is well worth the price that we're putting forward. So he kind of ballparks it, and we won't pay that expense until we actually deliver that product.
Excuse me, could
Sue?
you, I understood you say 8,500 to 1,500 is the high, and that doesn't make sense to me.
8,500 to 15,000. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm stumbling over my own words because I don't have my information in front of me. So 8,500 to $15,000 on top of the 4,500 that we've expended to date. So then on to the good news is that we have, through donations, collected $28,163.72 to date. So we're still well within the donations received to deliver everything that we envision up to that point. Obviously, the next stages of legal work haven't been quoted, nor do we even want to get into quoting things that we don't understand yet. So we'll take it as we go.
Okay.
Any questions, because I know that's a big one to bite onto, is that we're gonna spend up to $15,000 in legal fees. Okay.
All right. Moving on to old business. The mental health service. Oh, Peggy.
Before you go, check, it says McAvoy matching funds underneath
Oh,
financial and fundraising.
you're
Is there
right.
something else to report on that?
Absolutely. In that amount was the $4,000 matching fund from the McAvoy Foundation, which they congratulated on us meeting the matching challenge in record time, as they quoted. Which I don't even think they expected to match it in less than a week. So
I thought they had pledged 5,000.
they paid the first 1,000 up front.
Gotcha.
So they paid 1,000, and then when they said we matched that 1,000, then they would pay in increments of 1,000. But we just matched it in a week.
We just did it.
We actually, yeah, it took us longer to mail the letter than it did to match the
Thanks, Peggy.
I wanted to move the mental health service up to reports, if you don't mind. It was supposed to get dragged up there, but it didn't. I have an appointment with Scott Lash, and we're going to discuss some of the mental health questions that I'm starting to formulate. And the lady that was here earlier, she's still here?
Right here.
Oh, you're right in front of me. We talked about the meeting, and I'm going to invite her to come with me so that we can formulate some questions
I love that.
on mental health. And once again, thank you for helping us on that.
Oh, no problem. On financial, we're continuing to send out, but anyway, we're continuing sending out the donation request letters. We added, I think, 12 for businesses, and we'll keep going if we have any ideas on other areas we should be tapping or trying to.
And obviously, when we start encountering more expenses, then I'll give you the expense revenue report for that account. But I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to do that math. We're almost up to a projected $20,000 in expenses, and we have $28,000 in revenue. So you can start seeing where the gap is starting to close. And I know we talked about it at one point in time. If the money's not there, the task force will not pursue. We're not going to put this budget. We're not going to push that account into a negative status.
No, as we said all along, we won't spend any more money than we have.
Jim, I think that the fundraising committee is looking for some approval by the task force of broadening the range of letters that are going out past associations to include large businesses in the area that might have an interest in keeping the hospital open.
We haven't
So-
done that at all. We haven't any.
I am not opposed to getting donations from any well-thought-out person in this region. You know, anybody who thinks they want to help us, we're in favor of it. Them sending us a check.
And one of our donors is Hodgson Yacht,
Yeah.
Hodgson Yacht, so there.
So feel free to rattle that cage.
There's precedent there.
Yeah,
Could we do it in person?
I agree with Smith. Send them to whoever you feel
Okay.
you want to.
Great, thank you guys.
What shall do, say no?
Chuck, just a question, who is on the fundraising committee?
Yeah, we've always been looking for a leader for that. That's why we kind of melded it
But I
together.
just want to say, we need to thank them for the work that's been done so far, that's great work.
Yeah, keeping track of the finances has been, I've taken that on, obviously, as a town account. And Valerie doesn't want me to say it out loud, but Valerie's been probably the key leader.
Well, it's all the work of the ladies in the audience here who have been meeting after the meetings informally. So if anybody's interested in fundraising or helping out with that effort, we kind of gather right after these meetings and talk quickly about what we want to do, and then they go out and do it quickly. So it's a very efficient group, as all of them are.
I'd like to add one thing. I think that as we're also looking at what might be needed for our strategic plan, that we need to plan for raising money up to $50,000 in a very short period of time I will tell you tonight that an account has been opened at the First. We didn't want to promote this until we had a dollar amount that was necessary. There's no reason to put any money in it yet. It will be focused on nothing but raising money for our second opinion, and that's the name of the account. The bank needs to know exactly what the procedures are going to be. There was talk about asking for dollars in $1,000 increments, and that if we could raise it in a short period of time, like 3 weeks, then that would be a real show that the community is behind this, lock, stock, and barrel. But we didn't want to announce it until there was something specific to announce. So just know that account is there. As soon as the Critical Access Hospital has something to tell us about how much they need, we will be coming to you and asking for, and all of the entire community, big donations, those $1,000 increment donations. They'll take anything, but we need to raise it fast. And that will send a message to people who we are trying to send a message to. So as you're out there asking for donations, know we have to pay for legal, and we're going to have to pay for our strategic plan. And we can't nickel and dime both of these things, because we all have to be able to fund what we're doing. As Chuck said, the money's not there, we have to just give it up. So just keep all of these things in mind. It's right now, if you want to go down and talk to the First, Brenda Blackman will tell you that it is there. And it has money in the account, just waiting for the announcement that we have to have the money soon. So those directions will be forthcoming whenever there is something to be able to tell you.
Thank you, Peggy.
That's great.
Next, under old business, second interview.
I haven't made a lot of progress, that's why I left it under old business instead of under reports. It's fallen by the wayside. I have a couple of calls out there trying to coordinate people that could do a second interview, but I haven't had time to follow up with them.
All right. New business, additional questions?
I have, as we asked the data work group about some additional questions, I also knew that we have some St. Andrews auxiliary people that show up to our regular meetings. So I have additional questions that I need to ask auxiliary members. And if you know of somebody that can help me out, I'm just gonna ask my questions in public, and then we'll try to get the answers later. And I'll also give these questions to Peggy to put in our office hours so that we can answer them appropriately. But we need to know some specifics about the amount of support the auxiliary has provided to St. Andrews since the auxiliary was created. The sources of support of the auxiliary too. How does the auxiliary generate their money?
That's going to be available Thursday.
That's going to be available Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. That's exactly.
I asked the president for it, and she said she has it right from the day we gave our first contribution.
From the day you gave your first
It's
contribution?
$125.24.
Jim,
Yes, ma'am.
when I was president.
Stand up, please.
In the Redmond, past president of the auxiliary, 4 years ago, we reached our $1 million mark that we had given the hospital.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's on there.
Can I sit down with you ladies and try to come up with these questions? Because I'm asking questions that have been funneled through me, and they're appropriate that we have the auxiliary answer these questions with us. And so, the other things that we want to know is how have donated auxiliary funds been expended by St. Andrews? Do you have records of those as well?
Yeah, well, I asked for the
Yes.
last meeting for that information, all of that. At first, I was told I could go down to the St. Andrews and I could get that information at the health center.
Yeah.
However, I got an email from Miriam, the present president, Miriam Wade, that night, and she said she had the information and that it would be available Thursday at our end of the year meeting. So I'm assuming I'll have what you want.
Okay.
And I'll make sure you, okay?
Okay, and we'll try to put that information together in an expedited fashion and get it available. thank you very much.
Amen.
Yes.
So those are the additional questions I wanted to address tonight because I knew the right people were going to be here.
In the back, question?
Yeah.
Stand up, please.
What about, in addition to the monies donated by the auxiliary, do we also know about monies donated by private individuals or foundations from the peninsula?
Yeah.
That's in the
Harder-
report, isn't it, in the,
No.
no?
Harder to track down. We're trying to nail down the ones that we can nail down relatively quickly. And
Do we have a way to do that?
Their donors' names are listed in their
Report.
annual reports.
But does that say how much?
No, but you might get in touch with the donors.
What it was used for?
it would think the cost benefit versus tracking down all the donors is going to be a little bit harder than the auxiliary and the exemptions the data that we had asked about earlier. Those are going to be quick and easy, and we'll be able to quantify really fast.
All right. Recap the next meeting.
So if I can get together with the auxiliary or former auxiliary members, that is something I would like to move on quickly. If I can also work with the data group on that exemption question, that's something I'd like to move on quickly as well. He's still working on the second interview. I have a follow-up on the mental health. That's a lot of work. Also, just a reminder, Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission tomorrow night at 6:30. We're going to arrange another conference call with legal, but that is something
To be determined.
to be determined.
Public comment. Tom?
I guess Tom Perkins, Blue Bay Harbor. I guess my question would be for Valerie. Can you talk to us about Blue Bay Harbor's level of participation?
Yes. Booth Bay Harbor's, he wanted to know about Booth Bay Harbor's level of participation. Do you have a specific thing in mind with that question?
Well, I think the other three towns have all contributed a nominal amount of money, and I don't believe Booth Bay Harbor has.
Yeah.
So if you could talk to us a little bit about that, I know there's a lot of curiosity in the crowd.
Yeah, so financially, we have not donated money, the $500 that Booth Bay and Southport and Edgecombe have. Obviously, I am here as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, so I report back to the Selectmen every week on the activities of the task force, so they are all online with the information that we're all putting out. The board has discussed at the last meeting, which was just 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, that it's unusual for the board to expend any funds outside of the budget that's set, which is, I'm sure, something that the boards of the other towns also struggled with, was, whether to spend tax dollars that hadn't been voted on at a public meeting. There is a possibility of spending money outside of the set budget that's set at town meeting every year. It's called an emergency fund. There's a clause in every selectman's budget, I'm sure, that says if there's an emergency that comes up, they can expend funds without going to a town meeting. And so I think our board is just still considering that option. And I would suggest that if you have, as I always suggest, if you have opinions on what the Booth Bay Harbor Board, on what you'd like to see, please share them with us, and please share them with the board members. And all the town meetings are open to the public, so you can always come. We have 2 public forums at the beginning and the end, so you can voice your opinion twice if you'd like. And that's all I can say about it.
When is your next public meeting? Is it the next Monday?
That's right, at 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock?
Was the board
Anybody
specifically
from Bay
asked?
Harbor here, I'll see you at that meeting.
Was Was the board specifically asked by an individual to not donate to this task force?
No,
No?
no.
Anyone else? Seeing none.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.